required because, as they say in Hindi, jahan na pahunche Ravi, wahan pahunche Kavi. So authors are something whom I am emotionally attached to, primarily because each one of us aspires to be an author at certain stage of time. So here we have amongst us Colonel Rohit Agarwal, who himself has authored 7 books. I take a very, very uncanny kind of privilege to have sense of privilege to have done staff college with him, though we never interacted there much. But ever since he has been here on Retire Group, he has been very, very helpful. He has conducted earlier also webinar in the past, which have been pretty useful. And I find him actively on the circuit trying to aid the veterans in whatever way possible, and his whatever way is much better than many others. A word about Colonel Agarwal. He is an Armored Corps officer, left at around 20 years of service straight, was in MO Directorate, and thereafter he took the path less traveled of being an L&D consultant, has worked for World Bank as a consultant, and coached people on Stephen Covey's way of thinking, and that's why it makes the organizations effective. A plethora of numbers to his boot of the number of people whom he has trained right across the countries, basically. Now, coming to the authorship part, while his other books are some have been written in his private capacity, it is the fame that he achieved from that he was taken by the Ministry of Defense to write this official history of the World War I and downwards, because we only have an official history of J&K operations and hopefully something down the line. So we'll get to know more about him. But this work continued for over 2 to 3 years, backbreaking to say the least, but satisfying in the end. So Colonel Rohit Agarwal is one of the co-authors amongst many authors, but I'm sure he would have contributed in more than equal manner like he always does. So without much ado, I hand you over to Colonel Rohit to share his journey and also to tell you and let you understand that what it takes to be an author, and is it really as daunting a task as it often made out to be. So notwithstanding that, let's hear some of the intricacies of being an author and book writing. All yours, Colonel Rohit.
Thank you, Manish, for that very kind introduction. I think you were a little too kind. So the point is that when Manish came up to me and said that let's talk about this and all, I said I don't know how many people would be interested, because everyone feels, and a lot of people who wouldn't have joined probably because they feel that it's not something that is their cup of tea or that they want to do. But the point is that if you want to do it, it is not something which is very difficult, especially as a services officer. You are used to writing precisely, concisely. You're used to having clarity of thought. So that helps a lot. Now, the first question that comes to mind is that why do you want to be an author? So what are some of the reasons that someone would want to be an author? So let me start off by straight off telling you that it cannot really become a livelihood unless you become someone like Chetan Bhagat or Amish Tripathi. If you become a superstar writer, and if you look at the number of books that are released every month, maybe every day, and the number of Chetan Bhagats and Amish, so it's not something that you can do for a living. At least not even if you reach that level where you can do it for a living. It will take you at least 5 to 10 years of persistent, or maybe more of persistent writing, really, releasing books and making sure that, not that you can't make sure, you can only try and market them, but make sure that people like them. And then you reach that economic viability as far as writing is concerned. So that is one thing, that if you want to write a book, you should be very clear that it is not something that you can earn a living of. So that being said, then why write? Why it does take effort? So why put in that effort? So my reasons were two. My biggest reason was that, I just, Manish was talking about me leaving and going into learning and development. I'll just take a pause to give you the background to why I started thinking of writing a book and then several other books. When I was leaving, I identified the knowledge domain as the area where I want to work in. And within knowledge domain, I had identified learning and development and journalism as professions or vocations that I would like to pursue. When I looked around for jobs or for openings, I realized that it will be, I was in a very difficult situation because these were very specialized kind of verticals or professions. So at 40 years of age, with 20 years of service or professional experience, not relevant, but still, I did not want to start from scratch. So I didn't want to be, a stringer or this thing as far as a journalist is concerned. Nor did I want to be, junior most trainer kind of a thing within an organization. So I chose the other path, and I thought that one is I will go on my own and I will build credibility. Now, how do you build credibility? In terms of training, I started freelance training. So the more number of programs I had under my belt, the more different, variety of programs that I did, the organizations that I did program. So basically, the experience I gained that built my credibility because I could cite and quote that work that yes, I've done this before. So therefore, I am credible. As far as writing in journalism is concerned, I started my own blog. So that is where my writing journey started. Of course, my writing journey started in the army, writing all these noting sheets in MO where one had to write, reams and reams of things. So one, of course, throughout service, one has written. But, writing a book or writing topically or writing, non-service things was with a blog. So my blog got a lot of attention at that point of time, 12 years back. I used to write almost 4 or 5 articles a month I used to write. Now that blog got picked up. So like when several people who were working in newspapers or, sub-editors or people read it and then they contacted me for comments on certain issues. Someone approached me that, can you write an article for us? So that is what I meant by building credibility. So that is how the journey started. The next step in that I realized was that if you have a couple of published books under your belt, then you automatically gain a lot of credibility. So the reason to choose to write a book or of course, the first one is always the stumbling block. Or once you have one book out, then you know the process, you know everything, and it's very easy. So that was my reason for writing a book. I have also written fiction. So in fact, let me just show you, Manish mentioned that I have written 7 books. Let me just quickly show you what are the 7 books that I have written. I'll show you later. I can't find that graphic right now. I'll show it to you later. But so the point is that I have also written fiction. Now that fiction was just out of fun. And the process, I'm going to cover the process in a little while. The process of writing fiction and writing non-fiction is a lot different. Also, I told you just a little while back, I told you that you can't earn a living by being an author or by writing a book. But the point is that there is a way of doing that also. And how is that? I will tell you a little later. I mean, you can't make a living, but you can earn a lot of money through writing, which is something that I chanced upon. I mean, it hit me, it came to me, I didn't go to it, so it happened. But I'll talk about that also a little later. Now, as far as, just to give you an idea about making money from writing and this thing. So the average cost of a book that you would be selling, or your publisher would be selling, would be say 3 to 500 rupees. So let's take an average of 400 rupees. And as an author, you get anywhere between 8 to 10% royalty. Now, since GST has been introduced, they reduce. Earlier 10% used to be standard. Now, because they have to pay GST, which is 18%, so वो 10% का भी वो आपको 2% का, which is 20% of 10% कम करके दे देते हैं, so they make it 8% now. So but let's take it at 10% just for calculation purposes. So per book, if you take between 300 and 500, if you take an average of 400 rupees per book, you earn 40 rupees. And the average number of books, when I say average, I mean, so like I said, there are so many. I include myself, all my books. The average numbers that would have sold, except for one or two which are with reputed publishers, and which I'll talk about that. The average number of books that you are able to sell is anywhere between 300 to 500. So you can calculate for yourself, 30 rupees per book, 300 to 500. That is what an average author makes for a book, for the effort that you put in for writing a book. So there is no money in it per se. And it's not as if, yes, of course, if you're lucky and if you're very talented. Talent is one thing, but luck and promotion is also a huge thing. I'm going to talk about marketing your book and thing, but to become someone like Chetan Bhagat or Amish or one of these best-selling authors, probably it is maybe one in 5,000 authors or 10,000 authors probably reach that level of success or of the sale figures. Right. So now let's talk about your journey, or the topic of the webinar is writing that book that you've always wanted to but never dared. So how do you go about writing? I told you why you want to write. Non-fiction, mainly it builds your credibility, it builds your credentials. It can be on any topic. Like, for example, if it can be on something that you are interested in and that you may want to follow it vocationally as a profession, or you may want to follow it as a hobby. But in that field, if you have a published or a couple of published works, it builds your credibility. So, for example, you can write about, suppose you want to get into leadership development. You can write about leadership styles. If you want to get into strategic, consulting, or you want to become a strategic analyst, you can pick up anything, you can pick up the strategy. It's such a vast area. You can pick up any of those topics, India, China, or anything to do with that, or, and so you need to identify as to where you are going to, or what is your topic, or what is it that you're going to write about, and also narrow it down to as far specific as possible. Like if you talk about Sino-Indian relations, now that's again a very vast topic, so you need to narrow it down so that the book becomes more relevant and more of interest. So you could look at how do you narrow it down. You could look at a particular time window, that Sino-Indian relations between independence to 62, 47 to 62, and how it deteriorated, what happened. First there was Hindi Chini bye bye. So either by that, or you could say that during Nehru's time, or comparative between Nehru and Modi, what are the dynamics. So you need to you have to have a hook on which you need to catch the reader's attention. That why should if there are 500 books on Indochina, why should I choose this particular book? It has to be different. There has to be something unique about it. So when you're selecting your topic, you need to look at that. You need to look at, maybe you can ask people around and say that, are you going to read something like this? What would interest you? So identifying and narrowing a topic is your first step for ultimate thing, which is the sales. I mean, between 300 and 500, you don't want 300 at least, you want 500, right? So first, once you have identified the topic, now the thing is that all this I'm talking about is non-fiction. Of course, if you are a creative storyteller and you feel that, and all of us are storytellers, right? From academy days, we've been telling tall tales. So you can, pick up a, plot and build on it, develop it, and write a fiction. Now, traditionally, fiction sells more than non-fiction. I'll keep talking about the commercial bit of it to remind you, that ultimately you do need to look at the commercial angle also, for whatever it is worth. Okay, so once you've decided whether it is fiction or non-fiction, what is the topic we have narrowed down to thing. Now there is a very interesting genre these days, which is between fiction and non-fiction. So, for example, you have historical fiction. So, which is where the events or the setting would be historically accurate. The casts, the main protagonists would be real historical characters, but since the amount of details available or the records available or the inputs available are limited, the author builds up the rest through his imagination. I'm sure you've come across many such examples of historical fiction. So that requires both skills of writing fiction as well as non-fiction. Then, of course, there is a third category, or fourth category rather, which is memoirs, where you can write about, which is again, it's neither fiction nor fiction because you're writing about your own experiences and your own, life. Only thing is that you need to maybe fictionalize it a little, make it a little more interesting. An example of that is a book I have written on. It's called Academy Bonded for Life. It's about, essentially about my journey from first term to sixth term in India. I've tried to make it very funny and put some my postmate of mine has drawn a lot of cartoons. But again, so basically the basic thread is true. It's my journey, but I've added a little bit of, some story that one heard in India from someone. I put it on myself and I've added it, or some, so little those licenses one has taken, which you also need to do. The point is to make it interesting for the reader. If you just go about, telling things actually as they happened, and some of them would be interesting, but most of them would not really interest a third person because he also would have gone through a similar journey. So the point is to make it as interesting as possible. So I've told you that fiction, non-fiction, faction, if you can call it, like historical fiction, or and there is something called alternate history also, where you go back into history and say that, okay, suppose if Hitler had won the war, or if Germany had won World War II, how would events have happened? That's called alternate history. So that again is something that people write about, and those are things that you can think of writing. Again, that is between fiction and non-fiction. And fourth is, of course, memoirs, or your own journey, or your own experiences. Right. Now, as far as the process of writing is concerned, there are, let me just deal with the broader, process. Then I'll differentiate between fiction, non-fiction, and all. I'll point out the differences. So the first thing is to have, to narrow down your topic, even if it is a fiction and this thing, historical fiction, you need to narrow down that what is it that you're going to write about. Today, you can, if you are interested and if you want to go that way, there are enough books available about creative writing. There are enough online courses, including free courses. I will not tell you whether you should go in for that or not, because it is entirely your personal choice. Very frankly, I read those books and attended some of those, or saw some of those videos after I had written my third or fourth book already. I did find it useful, but I also realized that had I seen it right in the beginning, it would have been, it would have had pros and cons both. Firstly, while it would have helped me in developing a technique or doing it, a little more organized manner as they suggest. But also, I feel that maybe at sometimes those specific processes that they talk about may have tied me down. I would have become more conscious about doing it their way rather than like I just did it the what came to me naturally. And so therefore, when I read it after writing 2 or 3 books, I realized that I can pick and choose from this and see what I have done on my own and have a mix of what suit no, those two things to see what suits me. So yes, so even if you do read these books on creative writing or see these videos, or there are some paid programs, some very famous authors also have these master classes where they teach you how, not teach you, but basically no one can teach you how to write, but they can tell you about the process or how to go about it, outlining, defining a character, how to have a protagonist and antagonist, so there are techniques of storytelling. Similarly, there are techniques for non-fiction, but that becomes a little technical. So personally, I went by my gut. I went very, very non-technical as far as this thing is concerned. Just did it as it occurred to me, as it came to me. And now, of course, now I've developed my own technique, and it's much easier for me to write a book. Okay. So what I was saying was that even if you do read those books or see those courses, I would suggest don't take that as gospel truth. Choose to pick what you find good and convenient out of it, and you are also go about doing it the way you find it more suitable. That would work best, the mixture, because that has worked for me. Okay, so once you've identified the topic, you have a rough idea, uh, make an outline, right? So, for example, uh, there are various ways in which you can make an outline. There is a technique called mind mapping. I don't know if you have heard of it. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. If you've not heard of it or if you've not used it, Google it. Mind mapping for any creative endeavor, for any planning kind of an exercise, it's very useful. So if you just Google mind mapping, you'll get enough inputs on that. So you can use mind mapping to make an outline of your thing, or one of the simplest things to do is pick up a piece of paper, usme aap write down that what are the broad chapters that you're going to divide your book in. So for example, if it is a book on leadership, you can what is leadership, what are the qualities of leadership, examples of some leaders, what are the obstacles in leadership, what are the different situations that a leader has to face, what are the various challenges. So once you start it, also the advantage of creating this kind of an outline is that it starts channelizing your thoughts. It automatically starts writing your book in that manner. It's like you write any other thing, when you write a paper, when you write a military paper, you outline it. And that is one of the reasons why Forge gives you these formats, the minor SD for everything. So if you have to write an appreciation, there is a format. If you have to write an op order, there is a format. So that's an automatic outline which they're giving you. Now what you have to do is fill in the blanks. So similarly, if you make this outline for yourself, then you can keep filling in those, go as per that, and you know what information to look for. Now, as far as the this is broadly what I'm saying is relevant for non-fiction. As far as fiction is concerned, now fiction, probably you need to have a broad outline of the story already in your mind, right? Now, very quickly, I'll tell you something which uh, all these classes on writing will tell you. The gist of that is that any book, right? Any book, any story has basically a core which has 5 parts. If you break down any story, it has these 5 parts. There is a character. That character wants something. there is something which is preventing that character from getting that something that he wants. The story is about the struggle against that force by that character to get that something in the that he or she wants, and the ending is whether the character is successful or fails in getting that. So now, if you look at this, and if you look at any story that you have read, heard, seen, and if you look at, if you break it down to its bare bone essentials, you will find that it has all these components or elements, right? So if you look at this list, and this is the same list that any creative writing class will tell you in a maybe they may couch it in a different way, whatever, but this is the essence of it. ये निचोड़ है उसका. So, and of course, this is the basic element. Then you obviously don't have one character. When you have a character, you have a hero, you have a villain, you have a protagonist, you have an antagonist. That villain may not be a person. It may be circumstances, it may be whatever. So I am not going to go into the nitty-gritties and this thing. I'm just seeding thoughts in your mind with the time that we have as to what all you need to where you can look further, or what all you can the lines along which you can progress, right? So if you think along these lines, okay, who is my character? Is he is he what now? Once you have these 5 things, that who is the character, what does he want, what is going to prevent him, how is his struggle going to be, and whether he will succeed or fail. That is your outline. Then you need to build in more characters. He has to have, like I said, a villain or an antagonist, or who's preventing him. Then there are a lot of supporting characters. He may have a girlfriend, he may have a wife, he may have kids. So that is actually then, once you've got the basic outline, then you can build in all those things. So I'll quickly give you an example of this, what my journey of writing a fiction. I've written only one fiction. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It's called Riding the Reisner Tiger. And it is basically about a military coup in India, right? It's a fiction. So, but when I started writing it, I did not know these 5 elements and all that, right? What I knew was that my thought process was that, we are in a region where every country around us, which started on a similar journey as us, has had a military coup. We have not had. So there must be certain reasons why we haven't had. And what would, cause a professional and a political and such a organization like the Indian Armed Forces, what is it that would cause it to actually take a step like that? One. Two, what would happen if, how would it happen and what would happen? So with that thought process and my, CMK, common military knowledge, and my own experiences, I just sat down and started writing. And by the way, so that is another, like one is like what I'm saying is, as far as this outlining and all is concerned. There is another school of thought, or there is another, school of writing which says that no, just sit down, and very, very renowned authors like Jeffrey Archer, I'm sure you almost everyone must have read him and like him. He's still writing, and he's one of the most successful authors ever. I was seeing an interview of his, and he says that, so people say that how do you, the interviewer asked him that how do you manage to put in such twists and turns that, we never know what is going to happen next in your book. Excuse me. So he said, very frankly, even I don't know what is going to happen next. When I'm writing it, I look at it, whatever comes, I think of it at that point of time. When I reach a point, I think, what are the possibilities that can happen? So, he says, I don't go into for any mold. So that is also a way, and that is actually how I had gone about this, because I didn't know of this creative process at that point of time. So I started writing. I knew a basic idea that yes, there has to be something political which will happen. And as it happened that that was the time when there was a whole lot of this India against corruption and things going around in the country, a lot of protests, a lot of, so reality helped me in creating fiction. It helped me fictionalize a lot of events that were happening around me. A lot of characters that I drew were from people who I knew in real life. A lot of incidents I put in which had happened in some way or the other, minor incidents, but which had happened in some way or the other. So that is how I started writing. I reached a point. Now what happened with me was I got stuck twice. Let me tell you, it took me almost 3 years to write this book, the fiction. I started writing it in 2000. It took me 4 years. Started writing it in 2011, and it came out in 2015. And in between, one more book of mine. Although I started writing this fiction first, my first book, which came out, was not a fiction; it was a non-fiction, which came my way. I'll tell you about that also. So this. I got stuck as to how is the mechanism of the coup. How is it going to take place? Because when you're writing a book, even if you're writing fiction, you want your audience to believe you. You want it to be plausible. That is why you research and you make it as close to what is possible and what is the reality as possible. You of course you have, even in science fiction, when someone writes science fiction, they also try to bring it as close to actual science as possible. So I wanted to analyze and say that, okay, if the army has to take over the country, how is it going to go about it? What exactly is it going to do? Is there a SOP somewhere? Those are the kind of questions I had. Anyway, so that took me a while to figure out, a plausible way, which if you are my reader, you are a Fauji, or you are you're an IS officer, and you read it, you should say, yaar, aise thodi ho sakta hai. It should be plausible. Then only that person will like the book. It took me a while to figure that out. So that is why it took long. And then once I've done that, I've said, okay, now coup ho gaya, army has taken over. Now what? How do I end the book? Right? So that took me also a while to figure out. So that is the process. That is the journey. That is fiction. Okay. Now, coming back to non-fiction, writing an outline, then the biggest chunk, biggest effort in writing, especially non-fiction, more so non-fiction, is research. As a rough thing, I would say that for every page that you write, in non-fiction, you probably have to read at least 100 pages. Because what you are writing about events or things that are actually, which, like I write a lot of history, so I'm telling you from an history perspective. Of course, if you're writing, books on management or books on logistics, so then you're not writing, events, but you're writing. But what you're writing is about factual matters, and you can't get your facts wrong. So therefore, that kind of research you have to. And what you are doing, essentially, is you are distilling a lot of knowledge and making it available to your reader in a condensed form. You're making a capsule for your reader. So you have to go through all that knowledge, distill it, and then add your perspective, your experience, and your knowledge to it, or your analysis. So if it's about strategy, or if it is about history, then it's what you are adding is your analysis, and then present it in a readable format to your readers. So that is as far as so research. Now I'll come back to how do you organize your research and all that. But that is the next step. Once you've outlined, now you start collecting information. Depending on what your topic is, the various options that you have today, there is no dearth of information. In fact, the challenge is information overload in most cases. You have online resources, you have the internet, you have libraries, you have books, you have. So essentially, just to give you an idea, in non-fiction, you have something which is called primary source, you have something which is called secondary source, and you have something which is called tertiary source. Okay. So primary source is things like original documents. Like when we were writing the history of First World War, we had the war diaries. Those are primary sources because those are original documents. We had the correspondence, we had the dispatches, we had the citations. Those are primary source. Also, uh, first-hand accounts, personal accounts, those are primary source of people who are there or who know about it. That is primary source. Secondary sources are things like newspapers, research papers, thesis, right, dissertations. Those are again there are which people have gone through primary sources and have picked up these and them. And tertiary sources are books which people have already written. Right. So if I am writing on First World War, my tertiary sources would be the currently available bibliography as far as First World War is concerned. So those are your sources. How you can access them today? A lot of things are available on internet, including archival papers which are available. A lot of them have been scanned. A lot of them can be scanned on demand, and so you really don't have to move out much to be able to write about any topic under the sun. Again, sorry, I always come down to history and archival things because that is where where I have been writing. So, however, if you're looking at a similar thing, for example, if you're writing on logistics or excuse me, if you're writing on supply chain or whatever topic you pick up, or if you're writing on organizational efficiency, you will find enough material online. You go to the websites of IIMs, you will find their research papers. You go to website of MIT or you go to website of Harvard, you will find a lot of. Then you have online things like JSTOR and where you have these research papers by people. So there is enough material available. So a lot of it is free. Some of it you may have to pay for, that you can choose. A lot of them, so if you join some libraries, they give you access. Through that library you can access these paid resources for free, even the online resources. So there is no dearth of material. Now once you start going through the material, what I do, again, it is entirely an individual process, individual preferences. But what I do is when I start reading, I read things very rapidly when I'm researching for things. And whatever I find that, having made my outline, now I know that, okay, this probably is something which is important, which is of interest, and which I will fit in. So I put it under that slot in that particular under that particular heading. So I take an extract and I put it there. So the point is that once I'm through with a particular piece of input, it may be a book, it may be a paper, it may be a website, whatever it is, I extract or I take out whatever I feel I will need from that, put it in a particular place. I'll show you what that place is right now. I'll show it to you on your screen. And then I let go of that book. Thereafter, I do not refer to that particular source again. So that is something that I have now. I mean, after experience, I have developed that technique. Earlier, I did not do that. It used to be more work. I used to mark it in some manner. Then when I was writing, I would go back and refer to it and this thing. Now, over a period of time, I refined it in this manner that whatever is it in the first reading itself, I just take away whatever I need to take away. And then I say, thank you, that's it. I don't need that book or that paper or that website anymore. How to organize this, I will just show you. Okay. So having gone through this research, having collected all the material, then of course you now need to even if it is non-fiction, you must remember. Now, if you look at non-fiction books that you have read, you will find that some you would have found very boring, and some you would have found interesting. Right? Now, the same information, the same knowledge, it is now up to you. You have that through your research and your compilation. You have and your outline. You are in possession of what you want to or the raw material is available with you. Now, how you present it, what language you use to present it, what format you use to present it, how do you make it more interesting for the reader, right? That is where your skills come in the most. The narrative style, how it's again. So this is now. Let's look at 1962 war, right? And very frankly, this is something that I have found since for all these campaigns that I've written on, I've read a lot of authors. I found that 75-80% of us military authors write in a very bland and service writing kind of way, which is something that we need to avoid. I have been consciously trying to change myself, get out of that style and get into a more narrative style of, telling a story rather than, number one platoon went from the left, number two platoon went from the right, and the left attack succeeded. But, so you need to make a story out of it, even if it is not. That is word craft. That is where your skill as a wordsmith comes in, right? So, having done that, now you start revising, re-revising. Your research process does not stop because you will keep coming across new material, right? So once you get you get some new book, you've read something, you have, since you are doing these two things simultaneously, because you can't sit and write the whole day, or you can't sit and review or revise. You have to divide time between writing. So what I used to do for myself was, I had set a target. um, Generally it is 2000 words a day. I said I will write 2000 words a day. So I used to try and finish that target as soon as possible within the day. And once I'm done with those 2000 words, I used to then switch to research and reading the rest of the time that I had in that day. And based on this research and reading is what I would write the next day, those 2000 words. So you will keep, adding stuff to various parts of it. You'll keep adding information. You might change some information. You might, edit things. So that it's a continuous process, right? And then finally you have what, you feel that, okay, now I have my draft ready. Then you need to show it, to get someone to read it for you. If it's getting professionally published, you'll have an editor who will read it. The editor may not be a subject matter expert. The editor will only correct it for language. uh, if you're lucky and the editor also knows about the subject, then they may give you inputs about the subject matter as well. But it is very important to get a peer or someone who knows about the subject also to go through it once, because apna bacha sabko pyara lagta hai. So you will not really see a lot of things that a third person may be able to point out to you when they go through your stuff. So that, and reviewing and editing. Now comes the part about how to get it published. आपके पास manuscript तैयार हो गया है. Now comes the toughest challenge, that is getting it published. Why toughest challenge? Because, like I said, today a lot of people are writing books. Now a publisher looks at the saleability, right? And a publisher, especially the established publishers, say a Random House or HarperCollins or Penguin and all. Firstly, they have their established authors. So they have, say, if they have a capacity to publish, say, 100 books in a year or 200 books in a year, 60 to 70 or 80 of them are taken up by their established authors, people who they already have a relationship with, who've written a book for them, and they say they know that their book uh, is saleable. It makes, even if it makes them whatever is their profit margin, if it is, they have whatever metrics they have. So they have those authors. So that capacity gets taken over. Then you have first-time authors, but they are celebrity authors. For example, if Ranveer Singh wants to write a book or Ranveer Kapoor wants to write a book, the publishers will run after them and say, you get it published by us, get it published by us, because they know that just through that, because of the person's celebrity status, the book will sell. It will automatically give them profit. So maybe, rest of the capacity is taken up by those people. Now, capacity means depending on how much staff they have, what is the publishing this thing. So if they have 100, आपका 80, 70, 80 गया. So maybe it's about 10 to 20 that they will have left to give chance to new authors. Now, to whom do they give chance? That is again a matter of luck, a matter of perseverance, a matter of trying. So that is as far as established authors is concerned. Established publishers is concerned. That is not to say that you should not try to approach the established publishers. Now, the usual way that they say is, and you can only approach them once your book is ready. And they say that you give us, you can either send them through mail or on their website. You need to upload, you need to send them a synopsis. You need to send them the first 2 or 3 chapters. And in my experience, I have never received a response. Even after I've published 2-3 books, I have never received a response from them. Though I have been published by established publishers also. In fact, my very first book was by Rowley Books. I have also been published by Bloomsbury. I have been published by Pentagon Books. So that's a different thing. I will tell you about that. So this is as far as finding a reputed publisher is concerned. So you pick up once your book is ready, take your manuscript, go to each of their website, find out how to submit it and submit it for what it is worth. And then wait, because they tell you that we'll come back to you within a month or 2 months or whatever time, right? In that process. So ideally, once you have the first, whatever is their requirement, first chapter or first 2 chapters, once you have that ready, put it in. Approach them. I mean, electronically, you will not be able to, unless you really know someone and you have some friend there or some relative there, you will not be able to get FaceTime. So you just submit it once that is ready, so that by the time your book is ready, you would have got a response from them. Some of them do write backs, some of them don't. So if there's been a reasonable time and you've not heard back from them, that means they take it that you will assume that they are not interested. This is not to discourage you, but this is just to tell you. But there are other options available, right? The other options are, one is, smaller publishers, niche publishers. So for example, if you're writing on military topics, there are a large number of publishers who specialize in that, right? And when you go to USI or when you go to all these things, you'll find out as to who these are. KW, you have a whole lot of them. And the third option is that you have smaller publishers, which are again, they're professional, they're very good, but they charge you a little bit of money to publish. Why do they charge you money? Because they are not investing in you as an author. So suppose you want 200 copies of your book published. So firstly, they will, the editing has to be done by the publisher. The final editing and the layout of the book has to be done. A large publishing house, what they do is that they don't charge you. They do that themselves, but because they see potential, they know that they'll earn back that money from your book. But a smaller publisher, the one I'm talking about, this particular genre of publishers, they will charge you for that editing, and they will charge you for the first run of copies that are going to be published or printed rather. So typically it is around 25,000 rupees. And in that 25,000 rupees, I think they give you about 20 or 25 copies of your book also. The advantage of having a publisher, whether it is big, small, is that they help you in marketing. Now, why I'm saying the advantage of having a publisher is because the fourth way is to go without a publisher. How do you go without a publisher? That is, you self-publish. Simplest way of doing that is having an ebook. Today, you can have an ebook. You can even have a print book which is self-published through something which is called print on demand. My couple of my books are like that, like the fiction that I told you about, that is like that. The So what happens is that you have websites, including now Amazon was also started doing that recently. So you can do this through Amazon. That is the easiest way because it's selling on Amazon as well. So what you do is you go to their website. Like for example, one of my books was on Pothi.com, Pothi, Pothi.com. Similarly, now you have something called Kindle Direct Publishing. So it is kdp.amazon.com. KDP, Kilo Delta Papa. You go to that this thing, they will give you. You can download a template from there. It's a Word document. You download that template. You format your manuscript as per that template, and you upload it on their website. Then they give you pricing thing. They give you an option. Okay, how much do you want to price it? If it is an ebook, there is no starting lower limit. But if it is they publish it also. They print it and sell hard copies also. If it's a printed book, they will, based on the number of pages, the size, and all that, they'll tell you that okay, this is the minimum cost. So if 200 rupees is the minimum cost, now it is up to you how much you want to sell it for. You want to sell it for 210 rupees, or you want to sell it for 2000 rupees. That is entirely up to you. Now, what that amount that you have decided that you want to sell it for, 70% comes to you and 30% goes to Amazon. So if you're selling that book for 300 rupees, 70 rupees will come. Every book that is sold, 70 rupees will come to you and 30 rupees will go to Amazon. Now, the point is that a publisher gives you 10% royalty and direct publishing gives you 70% royalty. The challenge here is that if you have an established publisher, then it is easier for you to be able to get your books onto bookshops, to be able to supply them to libraries. Whereas when you have it on Amazon, they'll have to, all the libraries, or firstly, no bookstore will have it because bookstores won't order from Amazon and stock your book. And even if you have libraries that want them, they'll have to order it online through Amazon. Whereas publishers keep sending their catalogs to libraries, and libraries pick up books that they want from there. So that is the advantage and disadvantage. So look at it this way: that if you have a 10% royalty here and a 70% royalty here, so that means that for every 7 books that this publisher sells, and 1 book you sell is equal. So that is the rough mathematics. So you have to take a call for yourself whether you want to go with a publisher, whether a publisher accepts you, because this is also a fallback option. But if no publisher, finally you don't want to pay for publishing, you don't want to pay that 25,000 rupees. This is free. This process is entirely free. It doesn't cost you a penny. Without spending a penny, your book is available online on Amazon. Your ebook is available on Kindle, your hard copy. So what they do is they don't print and keep. It is called print on demand. The moment someone orders a book, they print 1 copy and dispatch it to them. That is how it works. So there is no inventory which they keep, and there is no. Now, quickly, I had thought that this talk won't take so much time. I was telling Manish that, I don't think I have so much to say. So 30, 35 minutes should be done. But I think I've gone on and on. What I wanted to show you was that, firstly, I want to come back to telling you that, I said that there is no money in writing and this is the average sale. The way, I have earned money from writing is through commissioned projects. Now, what are commissioned projects? Manish was telling you that I was on the panel from Ministry of Defense to write the official history of First World War for Indian Army, right? So in that, what happened? That they gave me a 2-year contract. They paid. It was a panel. There were 3 of us. There was General Chandra, there was a Colonel Dutt, and myself. And so they paid us a nice, comfortable amount per month for 2 years to do the research and to write the book. So it doesn't make a difference to us whether that book sells or not. It's an official publication. We have already been paid for our effort upfront, and that is substantially more than what you would get out of sales of a book. So similarly, I have done commission projects, two of them for Clause, and presently I'm doing another commission project for the Ministry of Defense, where I am writing on Op Cactus, which is the Mauritius operation. So, but why or how I got these projects is coming back to my very first point, that when I written my first few books, that built my credibility. So when when someone wants to get a book commissioned and written, they would look at someone who's already written a few books. They will not look at someone who does not have experience in writing. So commissioned projects, frankly, I didn't. This came my way, like I was telling you. I had not even thought of it, but when my first two books came out, after that, someone from Clause called me up and said that we want to do a book on 65 war. It's a paid project. Would you be willing to do it? I jumped on the chance. I did that. While that project was on, the MOD History Division called up Clause, and they said that we are looking for people to do this First World War history. So can you suggest some names? So since I was already doing a book with them, this amongst the other names, they suggested my name, and I got it. So this is how things add up. So you can actually ultimately get paid for writing also. May not be that much through sale of books. Okay. Now I want to show you a tool that I use that I have found very useful, and this I started using after my first few books. But since I've started using it, I have found it very useful. So those of you, and I see that there are 8 attendees, so I think hopefully at least 4 of you will in the next 1 year publish a book. I will really be happy if you reach out to me, not just for of course, to tell me that sir, I've written a book and this is the thing. But apart from that, even from now till that process, if you want any other inputs, because how much can I tell you in 1 hour? If you want any inputs, any advice, I'll be more than happy to spend time with doing that with you. But as far as this is concerned, this is a software that I have found very useful. It's called Scrivener. I'll just show it to you. What does it do? In a way, it's like a word processor only, but it does a little more than that. So, for example, when you start off, you can you see my screen? Can you please raise your hand? Manish, is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Right.
Yes.
So when you start off, you have these various options. So they have some kind of formats here. So fiction, non-fiction, script writing, miscellaneous, and you can even start with a blank document. But just to illustrate, I'll show you a fiction thing. So I say, so it's saying novel with parts, short story. I'm starting a new document just to show you what this software does for you, right? So I've created this. It says, okay, temporary. Right. Now, can you see this? Is the
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So here now, look at the components that it has. It has the manuscript. It has characters. It has places. It has front matter, notes, research, and try. Okay. So what it does is that you can organize everything within this software. Like when you're writing, this is for non-fiction. So when you start writing characters, what you can do is that add a new note and say that and say that hero, whatever is his name, and then you can write. Basically, when you're writing non-fiction, you basically write a bio of a character, that okay, he's so and so, he's so tall, he's do this, whatever you want, because you want to then you have to be consistent with his reactions, the way they interact with people. So you will write a brief bio of each characters. Similarly, the places. So where all are the settings? So if my the Riding the Reisner tiger of mind takes place. One of the places is the chief's office. One of the places is the prime minister's office. Then there is the parliament. So under that you need to, you can do all this. Now, how do you, how do you make this as realistic and authentic as possible? Especially if you're writing fiction, like I told you, that it has to be as believable and as close to. So places today you have no problem. You can go to YouTube, or you can go online, and you can actually, without visiting, sitting here, you can see what a cafe in Paris looks like. You can take a virtual tour, and then write about it as if you've actually been there. Right. Okay. Now, so this is as far as the thing is concerned. Now, what I will show you is, I will close this, and I will show you the one of the my completed books, so that you know what it looks like at the end. Give me a minute. Okay, so this was my book on 1962. This is the final. What you can see here on the left is the finished manuscript. Right. These are the various chapters. This is the finished product. And from here, I can compile it into a Word document. I can compile it into various formats, which can straight away go to the publisher. Right. Now, below this, here is all of my research. So like I said, that every time I used to, when I start reading and I start collecting material, I pick it here. So like I was reading this book called Battle of Nefa. Whatever I have gathered from that, I put it here. There was a book called View from the Other Side. Whatever I found relevant for my basic, what I feel I need, I have kept it here. You can also, so like I'm reading about Krishna Menon, so in Palit in High Himalayas has written this about Krishna Menon, in Durga Das has written this about Krishna Menon. So what is happening is that now in three different books, I've got three descriptions of Menon, but here I have put it in one place, and when I'm going to write about Menon over here, I have this ready reference in one place. So this is where all my research gets, compacted, stored in one place, and available to me at this. As I'm writing, I don't have to switch around. I don't have to open a book. I don't have to do anything. I just look here, and I can, I look down in the same window, and I can do that. So I found this tool to be extremely useful, and that is why I thought I'll share it with you, those of you who are actually keen on writing a book. It would be very useful to you. So Manish, I am 5 minutes over time, and that's all from my side. I'm open to questions.
So thank you, sir, first of all, for this wonderful journey through book writing, and also sharing this wonderful software, which probably makes it easy for people to collate data.
Just want to mention that it's a paid software. It costs roughly about $400, if I'm not wrong, which is about, take it as about 3,500 rupees.
35,000.
Yeah, no. So it's $40 then. Sorry, it costs about 3,500 rupees.
Okay, $40.
But but trust me, as someone who's used it extensively, it is extremely useful. It is worth those 3,000, and it's a one-time payment of 3,000. It's not a subscription model. And the best part is that once you have it, you can use it on your iPad, you can use it on your laptop, you can use it on your phone. So a lot of times what happens is that, I have a book submission coming up and I'm traveling, and, even if I'm in the car, I don't have my laptop, I just open it on my phone and I start working on it. So that is how it works. So I don't get a commission from them, but I found it very useful. So that's why I just wanted to share that, normally, even I have this tendency when I have a paid software, I try not to buy it and this thing.
Obviously,
But this is something, yeah. But this is something that I found extremely useful.
certainly, sir. So when a Fauji says that he found it extremely useful, it's worth it really. So something
Juice
like
निकाल दिया मैंने उसके.
taking back to the NDA days of Kela Chandra shoes, in case you recall. Extremely useful. So if it's in the same category, yes. By the way, guys, I'm very happy that we had a good audience. You might be seeing only 8. At a certain point in time, we had about 13 of them, sir. And
The
they
topic is
might have
such,
dropped
I
off.
understand that not everyone wants to
The
be.
topic is a bit mysterious, esoteric, maybe boring for many. But the fact is, those who came today were probably really interested. And there are still a few, I'm quite sure that they'll ask me for recording. So having said this, let's see the question answer. So Shri Hari says self-publication. I think you already stated it, basically how you go about self-publication.
Also, if you want further details and you want me to connect you to some of these people, please feel free to reach out. Manish has I'm on the group in any case, and otherwise Manish is there. Can I just use 2 more minutes, Manish? I just wanted to mention someone who's been publishing me and there is someone called Creative Crows Publishers. There's a lady, Mrs. Ganeev. She's a Cosmet's wife. Her father was a Colonel Saab from Gurkhas who started this publishing house, Creative Crows. And she has published books of almost about 40, 50 Faujis, if not more. So that would be your go-to person, I would say, if you are looking at a real publisher. Otherwise, self-publishing is a good option. You can explore it. The disadvantage is it won't go to libraries, or it'll be difficult for it to go to libraries and bookstores. Yeah.
Well, the problem with most Faujis are they are so subdued by the tenets of service writing of ABCRL, with stress so much on relevance, logic, clarity, and accuracy and brevity. So brevity, I think, is overstated, and as a result, most don't write beyond 1 minute sheet, 1 page worth of it either way. And with a growing
Even the language, one has to grow out of it.
And the second part is even growing impatience of senior officers, that when they see more than 2 pages, they say, "Arey, kya le aaye ho tum mere liye?" So I think that could be one of the dampeners of many authors not ever rising to that level. But guys, frankly, I don't have many questions on this. I really cherish the whole idea that I know someone who's an author, and that's a good chip on the shoulder to live with, frankly. Drawing from the reflected glories of Colonel Rohit Agarwal, to say the least. And I think I got nothing much to say. He had stated that he will probably take only 35 to 40 minutes. We didn't have much to say. But now, since he's taken more time, I'm happy that he has taken more time, and that's why he's the author, because an author never knows as to what starts with a novel actually turns into a magnum opus and so on and so forth, depending on that's the creative freedom of an author for you. So, in case there are any questions, guys, please raise. Otherwise, I don't have many questions. It was a complete learning experience for me today, and only thing left for me hereafter will be to yeah. There's one question: how are the stories which are critical to establishment taken by publishers?
Right.
Rajiv asked this. Rajiv Ranjan.
So Rajiv, I think that's a very interesting question. If you mean established publishers, I would say that the question is you would find that like TV channels and like newspapers, you will find that publishers also have their leanings politically. So depending on which is the government in power and which publisher you go to, you will be able to, it won't be a hassle. Right now, since you asked that, let me share an experience. I was telling you about my book, Riding the Reisner Tiger, which is again, it's not really critical to the establishment, but it's a controversial topic. It's about a military coup in India, which people won't touch with a barge pole. So there was a gentleman who read it. He's a film director, and he wanted to make a web series out of it. It's still in the process. Okay, by the way, that is the way you can earn. That is where serious money will come in. If you write fiction, the copies may not sell, but if it is a good story, and especially Fauji stories get picked up a lot. it's a good story, then you get paid like nice for the rights to make a series or a movie out of it. There is, I don't know if you've seen this movie called Calling Sehmat, or I'm forgetting the name. There's a naval officer who's written this, in which this Alia Bhatt is there, and she's in Pakistan, and she gets married in Pakistan. Calling Sehmat or Calling Rehmat, something like that. That movie did very well. There's a naval officer who's written that book, and the book didn't. I mean, was nowhere was seen, but it got picked up by Mahesh Bhatt to make that movie, and he must have. So sorry, I'm digressing. So for this serial, again, when he went to various producers, because they are the ones who put in the money for the serial, they were very wary about making a serial on this topic, because they said, you're showing the forge, and I said, we're not showing the forge in a wrong light. We are just, and I will make sure that it is never shown in a bad light. But they were very chary. So yes, that is an issue. That is a challenge. Critical of the establishment depends on who's the establishment and who's the publisher you go to. If you're self-publishing, in any case, it's not a challenge.
Anything else?
They're coming up. Let me do a little bit of self-promotion also, Manish. Just wanted to show them the books I have written.
Yeah, we can see that 1971 Indo-Pak War.
Okay, you can see only one.
Yeah, we can see 6 of them. 62 right. War, Academy Life, Back to Academy
right.
Life.
So there are 7 of them, right? The World War 1 is
3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Riding the Reisner Tiger, Brave Men of War, Delhi Darbar 1911, Academy 1971 Indo-Pak War, The Edge and Back 1962. So the 6 of them.
So there are 2 which are not there. One is actually the Brave Men of War in Hindi, which is called Vijaya Veergati. That, and then I have also written a joke book, which is about 1,000 pages, which I call the biggest joke book ever. So that is not there.
2 more questions. Mansingh asked, in what cases do you require to seek permission from the government while writing a book? Another one is there any traction likely available for poetry based on Fauji life?
Frankly, if you're talking about traction, and by that you mean sales, I've told you the average sales figures. Poetry sells even less. And very frankly, I'll tell you, your initial sale will only be your friends and family. Right? Poetry is something which, I mean, if you look at people in general, very few people have the taste or the kind of finesse to appreciate poetry, firstly, unless it's limericks or something which, yeah. So, however,
you find many dime a dozen on Meerut railway station.
Yeah. So having said that, if you have you want to write it, you can do it. It is at no cost. Like I said, you can self-publish it. You can design the cover yourself. You can do everything yourself, and it is available, and it will give you a great amount of satisfaction. So one thing that I did not say is that the joy of seeing your book in a hard copy in your hand for the first time, every book for the first time, it's not as much, but it is quite close to when you hold your child in your arms for the first time, because you put in so much of effort in that. So I would forget about whether there is traction or not, forget whether it sells or not. I would strongly encourage you to write it and get it self-published. For all you know, it may become a bestseller.
And rightly so, sir. As you compare it to a child, they say the brainchild is dearer than your own child. So I think that's something about. And there is another one. Mansingh has asked this as to what are the stages required for seeking permission.
So this is a follow-up to the first question. This is, in what case do you require
Both,
To seek
both.
permission. Yeah. So if you are serving, then you do require permission. If you're serving in the armed forces, and now they have simplified it. Firstly, if it is non-military or if it is fiction, then I think your IO or RO can give you permission, if I'm not wrong. But this is something that you definitely do require permission. Now, I've been out of the army for 12 years and I started writing after leaving the army. So the exact process I would not know. I'm sure there is a policy letter on this. That policy letter would have been issued by MI Directorate. So, I mean, you can ask around and look at that policy letter. What I am aware of is that recently, a couple of years back, the policy was relaxed that if it is a non-military topic or if it is a fiction, then I think it is your IO, RO, maximum maybe SRO, if I'm not mistaken, who can give the permission. Earlier, it used to be MI 11, I think. But if it is a military topic, if it has got something to do with the force, it is still MI 11. It goes there. But you do get permission. It's not difficult. It is not impossible. You do get permission. I know of several serving officers who are published authors, and they're not like senior officers. I know of colonels who have written fiction and who are published and who have this thing. Of course, if you're writing non-fiction, I know some of them also. Normally, you find junior officers at that level don't find the time to write, but there are people who. So yes, permission is required. Procedure you will have to find out.
So right, sir, we come to the end of the webinar, and I'm grateful to you to have taken a time, and also equally grateful to these 8 attendees, because these are some solid guys who have stayed on, who really believe in what they are listening to, and hopefully they write a book themselves, and if not themselves, they support their kith and kin and their children around and help them write a book at some point in time. So this is flow of energy does not stop with 8 people. I'm sure it will go 8 factorial hereafter. Having said this, sir, I got nothing much more to add. So may you have your last word before we call it off, sir. Rohit, sir, all yours.
So yeah, I would also especially like to thank the 8 attendees because I'm sure there are the people who are actually toying with the idea or serious with the idea. And having said that, I am very sincere about my offer. I will only be very, very happy and glad if you reach out to me because I've condensed everything in 1 hour. If you want to find out more about the process, if you want to find out more about sources of research, anything that I can help you out with in this journey, I'll be only too happy.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. You really do some things for the sheer love of it, and today's one was for the sheer love of it. And till we get back to the grind of Roji Roti and Naukri all over again from the next webinars, I think enjoy the taste of this one. It leaves a good aftertaste for each one of us.